Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our latest episode of On the Kerbs IndyCar Edition. We are back once again. My name is Nate Woods. I'm your host. We are joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Thiemo Albers-Daly. Thiemo, how we doing?
It's just sweet, I feel like, because on the one hand, we got a great IndyCar race, but on the other hand, Alex Palou somehow pulled it out of the bag again. And it doesn't take away the enjoyment, but it does add to a little bit of frustration. But it's all right, really. We'll get him next time, kids.
Yeah.
What about you, Nate? How are you?
Well, I was actually at the race. We're talking about the Sonsio Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Was this weekend and was there. Took my kids, took my mom for Mother's Day, and after qualifying, it felt like we were going to have a good race, and we did have a good race, albeit one that maybe some people didn't necessarily like the outcome of.
It was a hell of a qualifying session, though. I was watching the highlights for it. I wasn't able to watch all of it live. And I just thought, oh, we're in for something here, and I've no idea how on earth this happened, but I'm here for it, and this is the
Yeah.
kind of thing that we love. I don't know how this is going to play out during the race because we've not seen a number of these drivers this high up before, but I'm here for it. And if we can't have the McLaren, the Team Penske, beating Alex Palou, maybe we need someone else, and we got a whole host of contenders for it through
If
qualifying.
you
I
would,
thought, you know what, give them a go. Let's see what happens. Let's go
yeah,
for it.
if you would have told me at any point that the the teams or the driver that was going to try to put it to Alex Palou this season was going to be Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, and those three drivers of Rahal, Foster, and DeFrancesco, I would have uh, laughed at you right in your face. So,
Well, yeah, and for Graham Rahal to what lead the most laps of this particular race as well
right,
against
yeah,
Alex Palou, and you're going, have I taken something that I haven't been aware of?
yeah, yeah, just kind of crazy pills everybody was taking. I was like, well, this is a strange weekend for sure. But
It's the third option from the Matrix. It's not red or blue. It's this mysterious yellow pill. And I don't know what it does,
yeah,
but I'm kind of it's put Rahal and Lanigan in the mix. I'm here for it. I'm very
yeah,
confused.
there was a lot of talk about the tire
Hmm.
rules that they implemented for this weekend and
I found this quite
possibly
interesting.
move possibly moving forward to other road course races and street courses, where all teams had to use both sets of tires twice, which resulted in a minimum of three pit stops. Um, there was, I think, a lot of the Alex Palou group were semi upset that they're like, well, IndyCar's just trying to do something to keep us from winning.
Well, you
But
read my
then,
mind there. It did seem a kind of a subtle strategy to try and switch things up, but then that obviously A didn't work, and B, if you didn't know about the rule change, it looked pretty smooth on the whole and
it
just
really
seemed like
did.
a normal kind of race, and this is business as usual. So
Yeah.
it didn't not add anything, but it didn't necessarily twist things up in the way that the rule change was maybe intended.
Well, I personally like this change because of it adds a whole other element into someone's strategy. It's
Hmm.
not like it's hurting Alex Palou. He's having to run the four
This is
sets
not
of tires just
going
like
back to our
everybody
list of
else.
how to beat him.
Yeah,
This is not working on that list. We'll
yeah,
go to the next thing.
yeah. And this isn't here to penalize a driver that's running away. It's there to help
Others catch up.
enhance the racing, enhance the strategy. We went through what
8.
408 laps of green flag racing. And we had, well, this is our fifth race of the season. And before this weekend, I would say at least two of the races that we've seen were not necessarily follow the leader, but were lacking in a lot of on track action. And the more pit stops, the more rules that you have dictating, how teams have to run their tires, the better, I think. It's always been okay, you have to run each set at least once, which meant that you have something like what happened at the first race of the season. Teams that started on alternate tires, which weren't the best tire to use, started the race, ran them for 2 laps under caution, and then were able to dive into the pits before we started racing again and get off those tires, and they had fulfilled the requirement.
And you saw that again this weekend with some drivers starting on used softs, some on hard blacks, straight away fresh ones, and how that mixes things up. And it benefited definitely some teams more than others, but again, not as much as I would have expected. And it more came down to the strategists having a new layer of
Yeah.
complexity to deal with, and some teams definitely handled that better than others, as we saw. And it was a shame for one team in particular that we'll get to, but in
Yeah.
others, it didn't seem to make too much difference. And I'm interested to see how this will go moving forward because, like I said, it looked like it was just business as usual from a neutral perspective. If this was your first race, you wouldn't have known any better. It didn't seem different. And as someone who has been watching this for a while, it looked pretty much business as usual. And
Right.
Formula One's trying something similar in Monaco this year with making it, I think, 2 mandatory stops are required, possibly to try and mix things up a little bit around a course that is, with these generation of cars, difficult to overtake in. Will it make any difference there, or will we have a similar situation that we had here? We'll have to wait until the end of the month to see, but that will be interesting to see as well. And it would be kind of amusing if, like here, it makes it a bit more interesting, but it doesn't change things dramatically in the way that maybe the rule change was implemented for.
Yeah. I think if you, and quite frankly, I think this strategy would have played out much different had this been any other season of IndyCar, where you could rely on a caution flag or two at opportune times.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, everyone's been very behaved, and it's a curious one, isn't it? Because you're thinking, okay, if we have this, we can rely on this, and suddenly we can't rely on the quarter flag for some
right.
reason.
Yeah.
So the people upstairs are going, pit stops, right? Tires. This is we'll do something here. This is what it does. If we can't do that, we'll make the change, and then you get both in one race, and weirdly, neither work.
Yeah. Well, I felt very confident that we were going to see a first lap caution flag at this race.
We
We
got
almost
close.
we almost always do. I took my son to the race. This was his first ever IndyCar race, and he's not quite gotten into wanting to watch racing on TV. He much rather would be at a track. But this was his first big weekend where before we've been to vintage sports car races and qualifications for the 500. So this was his first taste of an actual big race. My daughter's been to several IndyCar races with me, but he looked at me before the race. He's like, "Are there going to be a lot of wrecks in this race?" And I said, "Yes, there will be."
The
And
confidence.
we were sitting at the north end of the speedway where you can see road course turns 1 through 6.
Hmm.
We could see about half the front stretch and about half the back stretch from our seats. And
You
so,
got some good lawn mowing action.
yes, yes, that was very surprising as well. But unfortunately for my son, we didn't have a whole lot of accidents in front of us.
No, it was this race a little bit like last time in Alabama. A lot of close racing and a lot of times where you were probably going, "Oh, this is surely going to be the moment that this record is essentially made," because we still didn't have a record in the first place, and it just didn't quite get there. I mean, you look at Marcus Ericsson spinning early on, you look at Felix Rosenqvist and then VK coming together,
Yeah.
but that was still like, oh, surely, no, not quite. We're just about getting away
Yep.
with that. And
Yeah.
then 85 laps, and it's not until lap 69 that you then get it. And I mean, we talk about the commentary and the reaction from the fans there as well, but it was almost annoying that there was a caution because I just thought there's surely going to be multiple ones in the 500. I'll be surprised if we don't get anything there. So it would be kind of fun to have the record be made there rather than here. And we got
Yeah.
so close to the end of another race, it felt a little bit like, oh, I don't know what we were aiming for a record here to make one, but I thought we could maybe just go a little bit extra. But
Yeah.
you obviously were watching it trackside on the IndyCar commentary. They were going, "Oh, oh, guys, maybe." It's like, surely not an IndyCar in 2025. And then it's kind of there's the caution flag, and it's that WWE meme of when the commentators all lose their minds. It was this kind of
Yes.
reaction. Go, oh my god, we finally got one,
And they
and
did
everyone was losing
highlight
their mind.
that. Yeah, they did highlight that on the race recap, the extended highlights that I watched last night and in
Hmm.
prepping for the show. But it was uh, I tell you, the biggest ovation of the day, being there at the track, the biggest ovation was when that caution flag came out. They're showing it on the jumbotron that David Lucas is off track. His car's not moving. It's off, and we're we're all sitting there like, oh, this could be it. This could be it. And then they throw the yellow flag, and the crowd just erupts in applause and cheering. And it was kind of a neat moment.
It's one of
Kind of
those
strange
very
that
rare
that
unifying fan moments.
a caution flag was the highlight of the race for the majority of the spectators at the track. So,
Because it gives you the false impression that the race was terrible up to that point, but I think it was just because
no,
the fact that we've gone so long without a caution flag, like you say, it's the first time in 408 laps we don't have a prerequisite for this. It's never happened before.
yeah.
So it's just kind of, we've weirdly witnessed history, and you go, oh, what have you witnessed? And you go, well, I was there when they had the first caution flag in 408 laps. And you go, oh, tell me more.
So yeah, one driver that didn't get to experience the caution flag or running under caution or any of the tire strategies that had take place was Kiffin Simpson. Like
Yes, bad luck for
very
him this weekend.
yeah, and I didn't see any interviews with him after the race. I think he was probably pretty dejected not being able to start the race. Now, Carr was out staged, ready to go, had gone out and ran the warm up, and uh, and for
It didn't
whatever
look like there
reason,
was anything immediately wrong. He just went into the pits, never came back.
yeah, never came back out, and yeah, it was unfortunate for him. Had a great qualifying effort, and outside of the Rahal Letterman Lanigan team, I think that was probably the biggest surprise in qualifying. Uh,
Yeah,
for,
I'd say so. Because again, as we say before, it's difficult for him sometimes, I think, being with Coyne Dixon in a team because you can be
yeah,
quite easily cast to one side a bit unfairly. And he then does well, like you say, in qualifying, and then just can't do anything about it through no fault of his own, as far as we're aware, unless he nods something and just here's the self-destruct button inside the
yeah,
car.
yeah, never
And
know.
like you say, there we go, and that's it. So very unfortunate for him, but it's racing. Well, not
Yeah,
even racing.
not even racing, but hey, he was there. Now, the start of the race where I thought there was going to be a caution. They're coming down the longest straight that we have in any IndyCar road course, and they immediately have to slow down to 60 miles per hour to make a right-hand turn. Um, that is scary for anybody to watch. I can't imagine what it's like sitting in the seat of a car going 185 and then slowing down with that much traffic around you. Traditionally, we see something happen. Someone's off in the grass, someone's spinning out, someone's getting collected. And there was some bumping, but even three wide through the first, six corners and then onto the backstretch is nuts. That there wasn't some more, it wasn't an accident. There wasn't more damaged cars than what we had. What we had, Colton Herta had a little bit of damage to his car. Um,
It
Connor
just made me
Daly,
think
Cal
that
Milot,
is
yeah,
there has there been a new kind of cost cap rule that implemented that we don't know about where
yeah,
everyone's going, you better not damage these cars because you're paying for them out of your own pocket here.
that's right. Yeah, I've often thought that as well. It's like, are these drivers driving cautiously or are they just better?
And so they've all just had a secret meeting somewhere over the winter break and gone, let's just try not to do anything too extreme. We all know what we're doing this, but there's no, the rookies they're solid rookies. I mean, from what we've seen so far, while not all of them have set the world alight necessarily, they're all historically good drivers and have earned their spots to be there. So that we don't have any particular rookie where you go, oh, that's going to be interesting to see how they do because they're quite renegade in their driving or something like this. So you can't even rely on them necessarily to just yeet it up
Yeah.
into the inside in turn one and then take out half the field. There's none of that. So Roman Grosjean not in the field anymore. You can't rely on him to do anything. So everyone's just there going, we can still make this work. And I wonder how many of them now thinking, is this how we get below? I'm not saying we do it. I'm just saying, is this something we've got to look into?
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of rookies, Louis Foster, the first half of the race,
Yeah.
he looked amazing. Was
I say
able to
after the
keep,
back of that qualifying as well, I thought, oh,
yeah,
okay, he's woken up. This is he's got his bedded in time now, and
yeah,
still think maybe he has woken up.
yeah. He was able to keep pace and stay up front for a good portion of of the first half of that race, and it was just some bad strategy. I think there was a bad pit stop. Maybe they highlighted during the TV coverage that I didn't see live at the track, but yeah, it was neat to see a rookie um, be able to maintain pace with the front of the field.
So we've definitely wondered about him for a while, being the top rookie coming into the season two was. And obviously it's been fine, but he's not come in and done what he did in Indy NXT last year, for example. So to see him just making that next step forward, I think that's all we really want from those drivers in a lot of senses. It's kind of if you're PREMA, we just don't want you to be having PREMA issues and just get on with it. If you're able, we just want you to move slowly a bit further up because we still don't know quite what to do with you in terms of where we rank you. And for Foster, it's kind of that, but on a different level because we know what you're capable of. So it's,
Mhm.
yeah, like you said, it's nice to see them up there. And we don't need them to get on the podium per se. We just need to see that there is that potential coming through. And I think if you're the team owner there, that's also encouraging. Going, okay, cool. That's working a little bit more than it was and going in the right direction. That's all I need as well to make sure that this is good moving forwards. Because, like I say,
Yeah,
it's only race five, but at the same time, race five. And
yeah.
time is money, essentially, in the current. You're always driving for a new contract, even if you are under contract, because we know how quickly that can change if people want it to happen badly enough.
Right. Yeah. You say, this is only race five of the season, but we're getting into the time of year where the races click off fast now.
Yeah.
The first, it takes us what, 2.5 months to get to the fourth race of the season. And then you have races four, five, six, and seven, all within 5 weeks of each other. So, it's, it, the races will click off quick, and the complexity of this season will change rapidly. Maybe not at the front,
We'll
but
see. We'll
we'll
see.
see. We will see. We talked about it briefly last episode. Alex Palou pulling away was 97-point lead now after his victory at this race, and you know, it's still not insurmountable, only because we're getting to a point in the season where ovals will start to take over. Where Alex Palou and he has 15 victories now in IndyCar, and not a single one of them have come on an oval. So, you have to start taking a look at that and be like, is that the ray of hope that we can hang our hopes on? That the season will close up because of the tracks that we'll be going to.
It does feel a little bit like Max Verstappen last year, in the sense that here's this seemingly insurmountable lead that he's
I
managed
was
to eke
I was
out.
thinking the same thing last night. Yep.
Yeah, but in this instance, we have more capable drivers and more of them rather than just trying to pin hopes on one and an outside chance of a second to go and catch him. It's just they need to be consistent with it. And like you say, he's not one on an oval. And we're getting into a bit of the season where if you have a bad race, there's less time to switch things around to try and stop that negative momentum in its tracks and turn it into positive momentum again. So it can kind of carry through from one weekend to the next. And that's sort of what everyone's hoping for is if we can't beat him, he messes something up himself. And that's how we can then start grabbing into that 97-point margin there, which is already ridiculous. I mean, I think the stat I saw yesterday was he now has the same And obviously, this will fluctuate for him, but he has the same average finishing position this season that AJ Foyt had, I think, back in 1964. So
Yeah,
he's on a whole other level.
yeah, they were throwing stats out at the track or the PA after the race. Um, this is the most dominant start. What was it? This most dominant start by a driver with 4 wins in the first 5 races since 2006, I believe, is what they announced with Sebastian Bourdais. And previous
Sorry, I'm
to
laughing because I'm just so used to, because obviously Bourdais in IndyCar was before I started watching IndyCar. And I'm just used to Sebastian Bourdais, who is in Toro Rosso in Formula
yeah.
One, and going, that doesn't compute.
Right, right. And um, they rattled off several drivers, and obviously you're out the track. You're only catching part of the information while you're sitting in the
Hmm.
stands. But I'm like, man, that's an old throwback name right there. And
So it doesn't
uh,
come up too often, does it?
no, so yeah, we were. I think it might have been us that were talking after last weekend or last week's episode where we're talking about Alex Palou's woes with ovals. And I went back and looked at his Indy 500 record. He's got 5 races, 500s under his belt now, and has finished in the top 10 in 4 of those, and
Okay.
finished in the top 5 in 3 of those, I believe. So
Still
he's
not enough. Even if he's
he's
not winning, he's still
he's
close.
he's still close. Yeah. So the month of May, for the 500 here in Indianapolis is completely filled with unknowns. I mean, any driver can win that race. There's 33 cars that start that race, and any one of them has a shot at winning. Which
You teed
unlike
up a
any,
really nice thing for me for later for when you say about when the next race is, because I've got a really fun idea for that. So I'm going to try and remember that for later.
okay, all right. But yeah, like we said, Alex Palou has won his 4th race out of 5 starts this season. He beat Pato O'Ward by 5.6 seconds, which no help to the caution flag that we had late in the race that bunched up the field.
We,
But
we, we got we got about 2 or 3 corners where we thought, oh, and then it went,
yep,
oh God,
yeah,
and that's not again.
yeah, it looked like in that restart that Pato was going to try to make that move and just.
So initially you thought he'd pulled away just enough, and then Pato was just right there, and you go, oh, he didn't.
Yep.
He's still with him. He's still with him, and then before you know it, he's disappeared off the road again, and you go,
Yeah.
okay, next time, next week.
Next week. Next week. But yeah, let's take a look at team analysis. Team Penske. Where were you at with Team Penske?
Happy on the whole. 2/3 of it worked for me, and it's building on what we saw in Alabama. It's more of where we're used to seeing them. It's a bit more like it. I'm happy for that. I am, however, still quite amused that once again Power starts behind McLaughlin, but finishes ahead of him, and McLaughlin, I think, finishes in the same place that he started. And you must be
Yes.
going, God, and again, you did this to me last week. What's going on here? And for a podium as well, just made that very amusing for me. Nice to see because I mean, not a terrible qualifying by any of them. You got and just went a bit backwards. I know he had a little bit of not trouble as such. I think he had an early stop and then just from there never really recovered. I don't think, which was
Yeah,
curious, and I
yeah,
don't know
he
quite
had
what the reason for that was.
there was something towards the beginning of the race that had him pit, and uh, obviously, again, when you're there at the track, you're only getting bits and parts of the action. If it's not happening right in front of you, or if it's not being highlighted on a jumbotron, you're kind of in the dark of what's going on. But yeah, he had gotten shuffled back in the field, and qualified 6th and finished 12th. But that was a large pickup from where he had been in the field at one point. So had a good race, a good recovery, but just not a spectacular finishing spot. But I think he had a great race to be able to recover up to that. Arrow McLaren, um, Pato O'Ward, 2nd place. Um, Nolan Siegel kind of kept his nose clean the whole race and qualified 18th and finished 13th, which I think is a decent finish for him on a road course.
Yeah,
And
it's an interesting one to see because I he's a rookie but not a rookie in a lot of ways. So I'm still trying to figure out where to place him as I am with other drivers. I feel like as soon as I place a driver and I finally know where to do with them, another one pops up and I go, oh yeah, I'm not sure what to do with you. And Siegel's now in that position for me. Yeah, yeah, like you say, it wasn't a bad race, but I think just because you've got him racing for Arrow McLaren, there is that notion that it should be higher up. Whereas if he was driving for a different team and did this kind of performance, I'd be a little kinder. And I was thinking about how to measure this team, and I just thought, are they a bit like last year's Chip Ganassi Racing, where you've got Below out front, and he can kind of just raise his arms around and just go, nothing to see behind me. It's all good. I'm out front. There's nothing to see back here, and it's all of the drivers just way down the order.
yeah,
And Pato's kind of done that here with Lundgaard. Shocking weekend all round for him, I thought, and not what he needs. He's, I think, over 100 points or just under 100 points away from
yeah,
Polo now, which is
yeah,
not good considering how strong he's been. And
right.
Siegel, yeah, good performance, but I think just marred by the fact that he's driving for this top team, and this would have been a great weekend to get a bit further up in either qualifying or the race, if not both, and show that you can be relied upon if one of your other drivers, in this case Lundgaard, goes down.
Yeah, yeah, with Christian Lundgaard, yeah, he needed a good finish. He didn't qualify the best, qualified 14th, so mid pack, and finished 16th, and that didn't do him any favors in the point standings. Yeah, he's
Shocking, I know.
98 points back, 1 point behind Kyle Kirkwood, and 2 points ahead of Pato O'Ward. So, uh, yeah, he needed a better weekend. It just wasn't there for him.
No, simple as that, which again, a real shame because these are drivers that we only have a few up at the top end, and none of them can afford to have this if they want to be the one to beat below. And you can't at the moment rely on him to do badly. So I think it's it's much Below's championship that he's winning is everyone else not being consistent enough for various different reasons. And I know that maybe is more of a bad cop, tough cop approach to it, but I'll do what I have to do to try and smack some sense back into them and get them out there and do what we need them to do.
Well, you mentioned uh, consistency. Alex Palou obviously is the only driver that's had consistency this season. Um, and I mean, it definitely shows. I mean, his worst finish of the season is second place. And so, uh, you have uh, what, one, two, I got the point standings pulled up here. There's one, two, three, four, five, six drivers that have four top tens out of five races. And so there's drivers that are having consistency, just not at the level that Alex
So
Palou is. I mean,
he's had 5-1-2 finishes.
yes, yeah. There's no drivers other than, I mean, all of Alex Palou's top. He's all of his starts are top fives, and the closest we have, Christian Lundgaard's got three top fives. McLaughlin three top fives. Will Power, believe it or not, in seventh place has three top fives. So
He's making it well, he's making himself work harder for them than he has to.
yeah, right. So team that definitely just did not have any kind of luck this weekend was Andretti Global. I mean, with Kyle Kirkwood was kind of the shining beacon for that team, starting 21st and finishing P8.
Which
But
is ridiculous when you say that, by the way.
yeah,
You're
right.
with a shiny beacon and you're done in 21st.
Yeah, and both Colton Herta and Marcus Ericsson failing to finish the race. Colton Herta having um, uh, compounding issues, I would say, throughout the beginning part of the race, and got a lot of screen time in the first part of the race, only because he was a lap down, running in the front of the pack. So,
This was something I was going to mention later because I quite liked it in what I thought he was doing for a moment, which was he overtook Palou despite being a lap down, I think, at that
Yeah.
point. And I thought, finally, they figured this out. He knows he can't do anything here, so he's going to help Graham out and just keep Palou behind him, help push a gap so he can trust manage his tires a bit more and just save it for the end. And if I can't beat him, you beat him, and we'll do it this way.
Yeah.
And then he goes and overtakes Graham. You've ruined the whole thing for me now. What are you doing?
Yeah, Marcus Ericsson also, said was he didn't finish the race, finished 26th. So certainly not the kind of weekend that they were needing. We talked last week about momentum carrying into the month of May.
It's just
This was
wrong
the race
momentum.
this is the momentum that carries you into the 500, and this is not a good look for Andretti Global.
I don't know if you've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but there was a moment in there where the police commissioner, he just goes, "Hey," and it just reminded me of that this weekend, just watching them going, "Oh, what are you guys doing to me every weekend at the moment? There's always something, and I've got
Yeah.
nothing else I can say about it."
We have the winning team with Alex Palou, with Chip Ganassi Racing, obviously qualified on the pole, went out, won the race, although surprisingly did not lead the most laps in this race.
Yeah, it's just he's showing us or teasing us in some ways. I don't know at this point that it is possible to beat him because he's not doing outright domination. I mean, he is, but he isn't at the same time. It's not getting on pole and then disappearing down the road completely. All of his wins, they've been good wins, but he hasn't been kind of so far in the distance in every single one that you can't do anything. He had to work for it in Thermal Club. He lost in Long Beach. He had to work for it a little bit last time out in Alabama. And here as well, we got so close to the end and you just thought, I can't believe Graham Rahal was going to be the man to beat Alex Palou.
Yeah,
And then sure enough, he didn't. And he goes,
yeah.
you. And that portion as well, you thought, okay, finally, at least it'll be close, maybe. And it just vanishes up the road, and five and a bit seconds gone, and you're going, how have you managed to do that in such a small amount of time? You're just on a whole other level. And they were saying about this in commentary. It's frustrating in some ways, but it's just awesome to watch because you don't see drivers like that very often. Um, okay, you maybe do if you watch F1, because there's, there's
Yeah.
there's one that comes along every now and again, but still, it's IndyCar. It's rare to have this, like you said earlier. 4 days, the last driver to start the season this dominantly. Um, but he had to work for it qualifying. He had to be patient and strategic in the race to eventually get past Graham Rahal, which I kind of love that it took him that long to do it. And I don't know how much of that was just patience and how much of that was just not being able to necessarily at the right point, or if he'd done it sooner, would he not have been able to keep it? What was the idea there? That would have been
Yeah.
really fascinating to get
Uh,
that kind of be a fly on the wall for those conversations.
I really feel like it was patience that won that race for him. I think when Rahal took the lead on the opening lap, and you're like, oh, we found our savior that's going to beat the Titan. And
The very David
then
V.
when
Goliath story
then
there.
when he wasn't pulling away from Alex Palou, and I was like, I think Alex is just playing with his food,
Yeah.
and yeah, there was that. But probably the first, I would say 10, 12, 15 laps of the race, you're like, Graham's going to do it. This is his weekend. He's going to finally break this 129 race losing streak that he has. And we're going to be here to see it. And he wasn't, like I said, he wasn't pulling away from Alex Palou. I'm just like thinking
You'll be
after
leaving the
the
track
first,
looking for Graham Rahal merch. I'm gonna get
it
a
was like,
t-shirt and a hat.
but yeah, it's just like, this is going to be Alex's race. And it became pretty apparent even before he was able to take the lead. I think with the tire strategy and knowing how that was going to play out with him and Rahal being on the opposite strategies.
Mm.
You're like, okay, halfway through the race, you're like, okay, Palou's going to be on the correct tires at the end of the race. And that's what's going to be the difference. And that's
It
ultimately what
was
it
a
was.
combination, I think, of Pillow, like you say, being patient, but again, RLL, sort of dropping the ball a little bit in the
Yeah.
strategy. And frustrating as that was, I don't know if it looks a little understandable, I suppose, because they're not used to being up there and counting so much.
Yeah.
And if the pressure wasn't on them as much as it was because it's below, if it'd been someone else, maybe you'd have forgiven it. But I think it was just the fact that we got so close to being this could be a hell of a story, and then didn't quite work out was
Yeah.
frustrating. But we'll get to them in a minute because there's a little bit more Chip Ganassi to talk about. We talked about Simpson already, but Scott Dixon, my
Ooh,
God, man,
Scott Dixon
could you
doing Scott
just
Dixon things.
qualify better? Because this
Yep.
title could be his if he
Yeah.
just started. He started fifth or in the top 10. He
Yep.
would be so close to
Exactly.
Blow. I think he's
Yep.
possibly the only driver at the moment who could actually do it consistently. And he's just all the way back there. And you go, what are you doing to us?
Yep.
What's in your
And
contract?
it's not. This isn't the first time we've seen him do that this
Well,
season,
no,
where
exactly. That's why it gets so
he has
frustrating.
a poor qualifying effort and then just works his way through the pack over the course of the entire race. Goes out, he qualified 16th and finishes fifth.
I mean, incredible performance, but just marred by the fact that why are you so bad at qualifying at the moment? Please just be a bit up there. If we if we're already at the point where we're trying to get Graham Rahal, Kvyat, Alex Palou, how have we missed Scott Dixon off that list
Right.
before? Why are we not trying him first?
Yeah, and there's not much you can say about Alex Palou. I'm just
No, just
it's running
did his
away.
thing.
Yep. AJ Foyt Racing, definitely, I would say a disappointing weekend for them. Santino Ferrucci, qualified just outside the top 10, did make the fast 12 qualifying. Um, but just, I think it was just poor pit strategy, maybe on
Yeah, I'm
their
not entirely sure what
behalf.
happened to
Um,
him. I mean, obviously, it was bad luck
Finishing
from
20th.
Lucas,
Yeah.
but with Ferrucci, yeah, I think he had some good moments overtaking us from what I saw. Because I remember them talking about him on commentary when he did a couple of bits, but then just kind of dropped down the order, and we didn't really see a reason why. So I'm guessing just strategy and pit stop and all the rest of it. And
Yeah, I think
sometimes it
part of
just
our
doesn't happen for you.
part of our curse that we sometimes bestow upon drivers by hyping them up, maybe is carried over to my daughter. My daughter's 19, and as a ultra casual IndyCar fan, she wants to know, number one, are there any women drivers? And then number two, are there any cute drivers? And so we pulled up all the drivers' profiles, and she scrolled through those as we're eating breakfast Saturday morning, and she's like, "Oh, Santino Ferrucci, he's cute. I'm going to root for him." And so,
Well, that's the lesson learned.
probably
Could
cursed.
you see where she places Palou on that list for us? Just out of curiosity.
I no, she scrolled right by him. Didn't say anything about Alex, so didn't find him attractive enough, I
I'll
guess.
cross
So,
that block. I'll cross that off the big list of how to take him out as well. Okay, right. Next thing.
but yeah, David Lucas, absolute horrible qualifying. Qualified 26th, and ended up causing our caution streak to end, or green flag
Yeah,
stint to end. But uh, uh, was it? Did they announce on the broadcast what it was? We
fluid
had
issue,
heard
I think.
rumors that it was fluid, but other than that, I didn't hear anything else. But yeah, unfortunate weekend for them. Those are both drivers that are on a team that both the drivers and the team historically have performed well at the
Hmm.
Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the 500. So
I think it's a little bit
hopefully
like the
they're
next team. There's not much you can say. It wasn't bad. It wasn't well. Okay, it was bad
it
for
was
them, but
bad, but
you're not too cut up about it because you know what the driver's capable of. Lucas, as you say, it's just bad luck happens sometimes, and there's not much to say, but it's not because it's been terrible in the sense of you've messed everything up. You've demolished the car. You did absolutely terrible strategy throughout. It's just a mix of things, and sometimes it's just not. This is just racing in this instance. It's not Kevin Simpson thing if you can't even get to the racing. This is just how it goes sometimes, I think.
right. Yeah. Um, Another team that just kind of had a mid day, I think was probably a better day than what they were thinking they might have, was Juncos Hollinger.
I've just written it's nearly oval season.
Yeah, and we get these kind of pops of, oh, we're kind of surprised to see him doing this. I mean, Connor Daly qualifying 22nd, but um, kept his nose clean and finished P15. And Stingray Rob, last car on the lead lap, was able to maintain. He qualified 17th, finished 21st. It's not a
I
poor
say it's not
weekend
bad,
for
it's
that
not
team.
good.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit like PREMA later on. You're just happy that nothing bad happened to you and you just got some solid laps. And I mean, we say this most of a race at the moment until we get to the ovals for Connor Daly, but he is not a driver that specializes in these types of circuits. So he's still getting more experience with them. And so he's a bit more of an investment for us. So we don't mind if he doesn't have a stellar weekend because we know where he does do well. And hopefully he does then do well when we get to oval season. Otherwise, we're going to really look like a chumps. But at least for now, it's working. And I'm not too worried about him because I think long term, we get to this point next year, even if he's not inside the top 10 solidly, I would expect him to be closer to it, or at least getting and maybe getting into it on occasion then. And it's just part of a longer journey there. I'm very much taking the long view, and future me may be looking back at this podcast and going, why did you say this? Why did you curse me like this? But that's his problem, not mine, so I can say this one.
yeah. Um, Meyer Shank Racing. You say that this was a bit of a surprise, and I think I would definitely agree with you. You had Marcus Armstrong qualified 15th, and Felix Rosenquist qualified 12th. Managed to make it into the Fast 12, but Marcus finishing P7, kind of, uh, you know, at the track they didn't highlight him at all. I didn't hear his name over the loudspeaker anywhere during the race. They announced him during the driver introductions, and then after the race, when they were running through the finishing order, they said his name again. That was really about the only time we heard him at
Didn't
the
see too
racing.
much of him on the coverage either, I don't think, but I don't think he'd mind that too much because he equaled his best result from this year that he got at Thermal Club and just kept his head down a lot like the drivers in these teams that we're getting to at this point in the podcast, where that's what we want if you are going to get a good result or at least a solid result out of the day. And not a bad recovery either for Rosenquist, really, given that he spanned when he was trying to pass VK. So both drivers inside the top 10, I think. So I think would take that for this team and solid, like say, qualifying, not brilliant for Armstrong, but good that he got into the top 10 then. I'm always harsh when it comes to qualifying for drivers because I know there's more spots available, but I always think 15th, you don't want to be 15th. You want to be, if you're
Yeah,
12th and
be
above, I
closer.
can kind of
Yeah,
give it to you. But he just got on with it. And it's nice to see it for both of them because Rosenquist again suffering from a bit of bad luck in points this season, one way or another, however you want to describe it. But it's good to see them there, and that's the kind of momentum that you do want to kind of have at the
yeah,
start of the month of May.
yeah. And a team that I think had a great start to the month of May, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. We've talked about them already, obviously with Graham Rahal, but that was a team that just kind of showed up, was ready out of the box, and short of DeFrancesco having kind of getting shuffled back through the field in the second half of the race. I mean, this was a huge weekend for them.
Yeah, I mean, first time all three cars, slash all the team's cars, have ever qualified inside the fast six.
Mhm.
And massive achievement for them. And it reminds you of Ferrucci last year in, oh, I'm forgetting the name of the track, but I know exactly where it is. Oregon, I think. I can't remember the name of the
Portland.
track now. Portland,
Yeah,
that's the one.
yeah.
Getting pole, and you go, you're not winning. We know this, but
It's going to be
damn good
exciting.
starting position.
We're excited for you. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, Graham, qualified second, took the lead on the opening lap. Louis Foster,
kept it for so long.
yeah, he really did. He led 49 laps in this race, and uh, it came down to tire strategy. I think that kind of filtered him back a few spots, finishing sixth. Louis Foster, we talked about him earlier, being able to keep pace at the beginning of the race. I think he ran the majority of the first stint in fourth, I think.
Hmm.
Devlin DeFrancesco had a great start where he moved up from qualifying spot fifth up to third in the opening lap, and did it honestly, didn't bump anybody out of the way, just
True.
head down, foot on the accelerator, and took off. Unfortunately for DeFrancesco, like we said, he got kind of shuffled back, I think, through pit strategy to finish 17th. Still on the lead
Rahal had a
lap,
bad
but
pit stop as well. That was part of it. He had a bit of a slow stop, and the commentary went, "Oh, that's his chance of coaching
yeah,
gone there." And you go,
okay,
"Ah, God, that." It was so unfortunate because for a team that obviously we've been saying for so long, you keep saying we're going towards something, and you're running out of time to
to
get to
do
that
that
completion
something.
date.
Yeah.
And then when they get that opportunity, it wasn't fumbled necessarily, but it was in places, and it was still a decent result in the end. But it just, again, going through another reference here, there's a scene in Rogue One where one of the characters goes, "We were this close to greatness." And you just kind of feel that here. And
I,
go, yeah, if this was any other race and if you'd started where we normally expect you to start, we'd have been probably quite happy with the overall
yes.
result. But you qualified far too well for us to be happy with this now. And so we're
Right.
just so confused.
You had a note here about Letterman's comment about Jack Harvey. I'm curious about.
Yes, I didn't think you'd have seen this. Harvey was asking him on the grid, what do you make of my presenting skills and my commentary so far this season? And he took it quite well because there's obviously a compliment in this, but it's quite an amusing one. I think we should see you back with a helmet on, which is obviously his way of saying you're a good driver and we will see you back in the car. But also getting me, hang on, am I doing a bad job here in my presenting skills? And Graham Rahal would
Uh,
just stand there and go, well, I thought you were doing pretty well this season, buddy.
we were in between races there. We got my family and I. We got to the track or 5 hours before the IndyCar race. There was we got there during warm up, so 11:30, 12 o'clock, and the race didn't start for another 4.5, 5 hours, and my mom had taken my kids out to go walk around, and she comes back. She's like, I think I saw David Letterman. And I'm like, well, you probably did. I mean, he's definitely here. And she's like, I
Does
don't
have
know.
an interest.
He looked kind of old, and so they at one point they've had him up on the jumbotron, and I pointed out, I was like, was that who you saw? And she's like, yeah, that's who I saw. I'm like, you should recognize David Letterman. You went to high school together. I'm like, now
I know the
obviously
beard and the hair is a bit long
they
at this
both
point,
look
but
a little
still,
bit different than what they did, 55 years ago. But so,
it's not an
but
excuse, is what I'm hearing.
David's been on TV pretty consistently since they both left high school. So, uh, in one form or another. But yeah, I will. We were talking about Jack Harvey. I will say he has come a very long way in a very short period of time when it comes to being a broadcaster. At
Hmm.
St. Pete this year, they were, throwing the commentary over to him, during the pre-race. He stumbled through it. He muscled through, but you could tell like he is nervous behind the microphone.
You're
And
probably quite glad it's that point of the season where you have gap between races so you can go and
right,
practice and analyze and
bone
all
up a
this
little
sort of
bit
thing.
on your broadcasting skills. But yeah, he's done great. The first five races of the season. Obviously, we get to see him in the cockpit for the 500, so we won't get as much microphone time with him. But
I think
yeah,
we'll be all right with it considering we're going to see him out on track again.
Dave's looking forward to it anyway.
Definitely. There's a sponsorship opportunity.
That's right. Ed Carpenter Racing, Alexander Rossi and Christian Rasmussen, kind of another
Yeah,
write-off weekend, I
didn't have
feel
much to
like,
say there.
unfortunately.
Yeah, agree. There's not much to say there. It's kind of you can't always win. That's kind of it, really.
Yeah, Rossi, we really did a pretty good job of hyping him up after the last race. And
Who are we going to curse the next time?
yeah, and
Alex
here we
Palou is
go.
pretty good.
He's dropped out of the top 10 in points, albeit though just barely. But we'll get to the points here in just a moment. But yeah, I mean, um, yeah, really not much you can say about that team. But Dale Coyne Racing, Renus VK, kind of surprising us again.
Yeah, it's we've got to be careful what we say here now, don't we? Because we don't want to then jinx him for the next one. But another brilliant drive into the top 10 after
Yeah.
starting from kind of a little further back. But again, he's kind of doing with that car what Rossi is doing with his in some respects. And and I'm not sure how you're managing to do it, but very impressive. And we want to see it keep going because if you're not going to get a contract with a big team in the next couple of years, then this is a great way to help make the team that you're with into not necessarily the big team, but a bigger team and a stronger team as a result. And they will love drivers like you for doing this and helping to expand their enterprise.
Yeah, I think this both Rossi and VK are outperforming their equipment right now,
Interesting to see them
and
in a team together,
it,
actually.
it would be kind of fun. But I don't have the tire usage form right in front of me, but I would venture to guess that VK was probably on the same tire strategy as Dixon
I'd
with
imagine so.
the number of movements the number of positions they were able to gain on track is fairly equal.
Again, less expectation of VK if he could sort his qualifying out, but again, you'd be intrigued to see what he could do if he did start higher up, if
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
what the kind of racecraft he can perform is.
yeah. According to Jacob Abel, qualifying 25th, finishing 24th, was out of the race. Mechanical issue for him. I don't know if
We
they
don't really see too
mentioned
much
on the
on
broadcast
that on
what
broadcast
happened with
now.
him. So yeah. And then finally we have PREMA. And yeah, I will say, Schwartzman, qualifying last, finishing 18th, on the lead lap. I mean, okay.
I will caveat that with he once again had a ton of issues during practice. His first time on track properly was in qualifying this
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
So
I
again,
think they mentioned he
he
only had 4 laps on the track before the race. So
yeah, so it's this awkward thing of yeah, we'd like to do better, but also you've only got 4 laps before the race started, so you know what, maybe. But it seems at least during the races they're going a bit smooth and being a bit drama free. But I've probably jinxed you now, so sorry for that. But again, it's one of the things where we don't need to keep going over what we've said about them in previous episodes. But if this is where they're at least they're being consistent now. Until obviously I've screwed them over with my commentator's curse, but um, that's kind of the best we can hope for at the moment. So they're probably not happy, but not sad either.
I, I will say one thing about Primet is they have to do something with the paint schemes on those cars. They are
That's their
identical.
livery.
Yeah, yeah. I understand that is their team colors and they're trying to get into marketing their team, but you have to just rearrange the colors of the car on one of them. They look identical on track, and it just
They should they should do what I've always wanted rally cars to do, which is on the roof of the car you stick a face of the driver on the roof so that we can see from the aerial shots who's where. But in this case, because obviously we don't have as much of a roof, stick it on the nose. So stick a big face on the front
yeah,
of the nose, and then at least we know
yeah.
which one's which.
But yeah, so that wraps up our team analysis. But who had the hot weekend for you? And I think
You say
we
we're in
both picked
agreement
the
here.
same driver here. I think we're in agreement. Renus VK.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted for Scott Dixon, but I'm still annoyed with him for qualifying, so I'm going to go with Venus VK.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, great drive. We mentioned, he probably, it seems like he was probably on the same strategy as Scott Dixon. And whether the team planned that or not, it was like, let's just do what Scott Dixon does. And, if that
If
was
it
the
works,
strategy, it worked for him quite well. But Um, who's your not hot driver?
Pretty long guard, just because he's been so consistent so far this year, and then just out of nowhere, just fell like a stone, and just not. It could have been even worse, but it was not what he needed, and he needs to bounce back quickly if he wants to stay in that championship contention.
Yeah. For me, it was Santino Ferrucci. Just kind of got beat up a little bit on track, but I did put a note here. My honorable mention was Devlin D. Francesco.
At
But
least it's for something on track this time.
yeah. It sounded like his team had a larger part to play in that, but definitely had hard luck driver
Yeah, I
this
think I
week.
think that both of our choices are the definition of hard luck. I think
Yeah, yeah. Who'd you go with?
I was going to go for Andretti Global as a whole team, but because Colton Hurd is part of that team, what hard luck he has, it feels only natural to choose him there. Because my word, what does that man once again have to do?
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but again, I suppose you do kind of take the biscuit. Because at least this driver on my end got out and got some racing in. Yours,
Yeah, I mean, Kiffin Simpson definitely. I think that is the textbook definition of who should get the hard luck award. Going
that's the
out
benchmark now for all future races this season.
qualifying in the top 10, punching above your weight class, and then getting out on the starting grid, and the car won't start. And so, uh,
So it almost makes Robert Schwartzman's car trying to kill him in practice back at Thermal Club look less worse because at least he got back into the race after that.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So point standings. Obviously, Alex Palou is
I was going to
we
say,
mentioned
who's out in front?
running away with it. 97 points ahead of Kyle Kirkwood. Um, you know, there's behind Alex Palou, I think there are two groups of drivers now. There's what? Let's see, 14 drivers that are all mathematically within one race of each other in points. And so it's close between a lot of drivers other than Alex Palou. From second place back to eighth place, we're only talking a difference of 26 points between
So that's nothing in an
seven
IndyCar race.
drivers. Yeah, that's nothing. And then you have the next group with Colton Herta, Renus VK, Alexander Rossi in 11th, Joseph Newgarden's in 12th. Graham Rahal moved up to 13th. I think he was probably the biggest mover in the point standings.
I'd say so.
And Marcus Armstrong in 14th. They're all within 13 points of each other. So,
And say it's one of those things we're going to have to do what F1 fans did in 2023 and just cover up the first
yep,
line of
cover
the
up the
standings and
top
go, this
spot.
is
And
brilliant.
yes, yeah. A lot of it, during broadcasts, you uh you hear the commentators and you can kind of get the sense that they are uh really trying to hype up other stories going on in the points on the track, knowing that yeah, they're not. I don't think anybody's ready to concede that this is a runaway season, but we're getting to the point where if Alex Palou does
We're going to run
well,
out of time to not say that.
right, exactly. So, uh, uh,
It could all
the,
change though with the next race because
it really could. I mean, the
really
Indy
so
500
much
is a
on
complete
offer there.
unknown, as we mentioned. There's so many drivers that can, realistically win that race. Uh, I
And so
think what
even like last year,
27th.
obviously Newgarden, we saw winning it for the second time in a row. And okay, yeah, he didn't go on to win the championship, but he sure mixed things up a good bit. And maybe that
Mhm.
if we can't get a driver to win who's in that top field, we can maybe get someone to win it who just still turns everything on its axis and keeps it interesting. And Polo's then thinking, oh, I might have to keep an eye out for X driver.
Yeah, there's, we talk about that second bunch of drivers, Kirkwood in second, back to, um, Felix Rosenquist in eighth. You know, any of those drivers could realistically go out and win the 500. Palou
Hmm.
doesn't have a good day on the 500, and now all of a sudden you're, you know, only 50 points ahead instead of 97 points. You know,
PREMA's
we're
time to shine.
we're still at the point in the season where two poor races from Alex Palou would change the complexity of the points dramatically if the right driver can string together good finishes at the same time. So
And then there's also the wild card element of it because there's the tie-in that I did remember, did not forget, is that obviously we've got some drivers coming in that will only be in there for the one race, the Indy 500. You've got your likes of Takuma Sato, you've got then Kyle Larson, who is already going to be testing in IndyCar tomorrow at time of recording, so Tuesday of this
yeah,
week, back in IndyCar. He's just come off an incredibly dominant win in the latest NASCAR round. And this will be the stats for you. He's just entered a very exclusive club, which I thought was quite impressive until I've just seen the numbers of the other two members of this club. He has now led 10,000 laps in NASCAR. And there are two drivers ahead of him on the list of active drivers that have led more laps. Do you know either of the two drivers
active drivers who
who've
have
led over
led more
10,000
laps.
laps?
Um, active drivers who've led more laps, I would say probably Kyle Busch.
He is one of them.
Um,
It's been a while since I've been able to test you properly with something. And admittedly,
yeah,
it's not
boy.
IndyCar related, but at least to give you something. I'll. You
Denny
got one.
Hamlin, maybe?
Oh, damn you! You got the other one. Yes, you did. Denny Hamlin with 15,613 laps led, and then Kyle Busch out in front. He's led a massive 19,441 laps in NASCAR. Records again I didn't know existed and are also ridiculous.
Yeah,
But Kyle
I
Larson could
would,
come out and win the Indy 500 and screw everything up for everyone and still be a hell of a great story.
yeah, yeah. Um, it would be interesting to see, last year was kind of an odd year with, the rain in the morning at the 500 and, Kyle Larson deciding I'm staying in Indianapolis and I'm going to run this race. And then we'll see what happens. But, the idea is in the past, I feel like for the drivers that have tried this double, that if you go out and win the 500, you're going to stick around. You're not going to
That's
fly
going to
down to
be the
Charlotte
thing,
for the
isn't
600.
it?
And they have been, Larson's been told in no uncertain terms that you are not missing the Coca-Cola 600 this year. If it rains in Indianapolis, then you're getting on the helicopter, you're flying to the airport, you're going directly to Charlotte. Yeah, that's the big thing is we've got a full weekend of qualifying for the 500 this weekend before we get to the big one. So I will be out there on Saturday for qualifying all day. Not sure whether I'll make it out for Sunday for the pole qualifying, but we'll definitely be watching that on TV, if not there. So, but yeah, I think we'll be back next week with a whole new episode, just covering qualifying. I have a feeling there's
There'll
going to be a
probably be
lot
enough.
to cover. So, Thiemo, as always, it's great having you with us, and we will see everybody next week.